If you believe AI is about productivity hacks, fast returns, and mind-blowing demos, you are already behind the threat curve. In this episode, I sit down with the offensive security expert, Tom Ryan from Asymmetric Response, to break down how the OpenClaw and AI frenzy of late has blown up personal OPSEC, your operational security, for those who haven't heard that before. From data brokers and 27 plus data breaches in each of the GitHub libraries and open source code bases that you use, to prompt injections and AI agents doing pattern of life analysis on your family through watermarks, hashes, and every free platform that you connect to. We get into the doxing and the deep fakes and how a single photo or misconfigured AI agent on your old laptop can expose your home, your business, and even your super yacht. Plus, simple first moves every high net worth family and advisor should make, like contained VMs, reading AI terms of service with AI, and asking 3 questions. Am I vulnerable? Am I exploitable? How do I protect myself? If you've got something to lose in this new agentic AI world and you'd like to sleep at night instead of living in fear, this conversation will completely reframe how you think about privacy, risk, and reputation. It's time to go to the atomic level now.
It's time to go to the atomic level. It's time to go.
Welcome back to the Atomic Level, the show that decodes the matters of wealth, one insightful conversation at a time, so that you can improve not only your net worth, but also your net happiness. I'm J Snook, your host, and today I am joined by my very smart and good friend, Tom Ryan of Asymmetric Response, and we are going to talk about all of the craziness, I guess, around the recent moments of OpenClaw and AI, but what it means at large as we hit kind of a tipping point in the personal AI space and agentic space, but as it relates to personal operational security, as a high net worth individual or as an advisor to them, really what this comes down to is when you act, when you don't act, what you should worry about, what you shouldn't worry about, and then ultimately what it means for your operational security, both as a portfolio manager as well as for your clients at the end user base. So Tom, welcome to the Atomic Level. I am so ready to dive into this conversation. Thanks for being here.
Chris, thank you for having me, even though it's so early in the morning.
Yeah, well, as they say, code never sleeps, and so neither shall we. I want to unpack this in depth as we go deep on these topics here. But before we do that, I want them to understand kind of your background, who you're listening to. So we kind of do this thing with the guests where we just start out 5 minutes ago. You can go back as far as you want, but talk a little bit about your childhood, your kind of the personal side of things that led you into the world of operational and cybersecurity and your work as a CISO. But before we kind of get into that, just help us understand a little bit about the context and the frame of how you arrived at this career, and then what the journey was to get here.
Right. So standard thing, grow up in a bad neighborhood, and you say, I don't know what to do with myself, so I go join the military. All right, that's where the whole OPSEC background comes from. After getting out of the military, standard veteran thing, where do I go next? And we're talking early .com stages, got into becoming a developer, and then Harry Potter got me into cybersecurity. Running joke.
How did Harry? Yeah, how did that happen?
So I was working at Scholastic. We were building, we were moving drastically, building out all this great stuff. And then we're launching the first Harry Potter website, and it got hacked. Right, that was the first stage. And back then, hacking was just like site defacements, blah, 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 blah. I was a little 16-year-old kid. And then there was another little hacking incident that happened after that. And it just goes on and on. And then you get deep into it. You start hanging out with them. Now I'm going to show my age here. This happened in 99. All right. After that, it just step by step. Got my first government job doing stuff. Then I left and first VP of pen testing. And then so on and so forth. The whole AI game where I got into this is I was so deep into AppSec.
What is that? And app security, right?
AppSec is application security. So when you look at everything, if there's code, it needs security. All right. Even low code, no code, which we all hear about in the orchestration layer of AI, there's still code there. So when you find compromises, it takes longer to fix because guess what? At that layer, there's only one tool out there that works for testing the security. So that's where we got it. And then we're constantly seeing how these models change, what it's doing. We see it in our phones. We see it everywhere where we go. Because there's always AI in the back end doing something.
Yeah. So came up, bad neighborhood, got into the military. Let's talk about OPSEC. A lot of our listeners may know what that is. A lot of their advisors may, but I would bet a majority of them also may not. In other words, it's not a word that they maybe throw around. It's certainly not something that they see on mainstream media very often. Maybe they'll start to see more of it. Operational security defined for the layman by a military guy. What is it?
All right. It's basically watching what information you pass out, controlling the information that people see. Nowadays, we hear all about it because people get in docs. So there's the information you can control and the information you can't. All right. You go register for your driver's license. Guess what? That data is sold. So it kind of kills the OPSEC unless you're purging it. All right. DMV sells your data. They'll have your address. They'll have all your information from that. Then guess what? Every time you pay a bill, they resell your information. All right. Goes to the creditors. The creditors send it to all the big data brokers, all of that. Pretty much every time you register for something. One time, funny part, this was, I'll say it was a billionaire. And we had to find out where he lived. There was only one thing that gave up where he lived. His actual home address, a fishing license. Public record, went out there, boom. That's how we found out where he lived. Because we had to go in and do a home assessment, figure out all this stuff. That was the only place that showed where he actually lived. So the key thing is, how do you watch and monitor this at all times and then pull the data when it gets out there? Nowadays, the bigger problem we have is all these breaches. As these breaches are coming out, all your data is coming out. I don't care how good your OPSEC is. I've been in at least 27 of them. Yeah. Because it's always that one time you register to a conference, an events company shares it out with everyone else. That one breach leads to multiple breaches. Or it could be your rewards points on someplace you shop all the time. And these are the things we're not aware of.
Yeah, and I think as it relates to the majority of people out there, whether they are high net worth, ultra net worth, or the advisors to that, it's not something that conceptually we've gone so fast in the last 30 years, 40 years in that direction that there's at least two generations, Gen X and the boomers, that remember a world where they didn't have to think about that, right? You registered to vote and you actually had to prove identity, and then maybe whatever your driver's license, but it wasn't. You could even go state to state if you had a New Jersey driver's license. And when you and I were kids, I remember getting my first driver's license. And then when I moved to California for graduate school, there was no way for them to even know I had been licensed before. I had to retake the whole test in California. Now, for the last however many decades, obviously, to your point, the data brokers have done so much that you could search a name and you could be like, I don't have anything on Google. I don't do anything. I'm not in business. You search your name and companies like My Life come up and they talk about your court records or not, and they use it as fair. And so people are out there, whether they are sharing anything or not. Now you layer in social media, Facebook, things like that. It's a whole other OPSEC issue because of the geostamping of the photo and things that people just aren't even aware are happening. But most people's response to this has been, well, I don't have anything to hide, so what do I care? And the best quote I've seen on that is, well, that's like saying I don't have anything to say, but I don't value free speech, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we think about OPSEC, what you're really talking about is just having some sense of who knows what about me and who can find it in an era where now it's easier than ever to replicate a voice of someone I care about and phish or scam me, send text messages to me to break into my bank account or my Coinbase or my life insurance policy or whatever the thing may be. And so OPSEC is something everybody should care about. Most people are overwhelmed. They wouldn't even know where to purge it. So what are some of the ways, practical ways that like an every person could just get their hands around it or take some proactive measures?
Right. So I'm getting pulled into this a lot because of the whole doxing game. All right.
Which
so
is typically happening now with, ICE agents and everybody else. So for those who aren't familiar with doxing, it basically means, you know, your documentation has been shared, right? It's the vernacular for saying you've been exposed or you've been made public.
Right. You know what the beauty about a name like mine? It's so generic. There's always cross-pollination. And a lot of times it's the wrong people, because every time I've moved, there's always been at least 4 Thomas Ryans in the same location. And there's 1,972 of us between New York and New Jersey.
Wow.
So I'll sit back and I'll watch it, you know, and that's where it gets interesting, because then what happens when you dock somebody and then somebody else gets hurt, right? So what's going to happen in particular cases like that? Because, you know, the activists and the hackers out there, they'll do swatting, they'll still do stuff like that. The scarier part, you can have it down, your OPSEC down, locked tight, and say you took a picture back in, say, 2008, and that was public, the facial recognition will find that picture.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's how bad it's gotten. And then the other thing we have nowadays is things that most people don't know about. On your LinkedIn, your Facebook, your Instagram, pretty much all of them have implemented AI rules to where you post it, they own it, and they can do whatever they want with it. So
Right.
when you start to think pattern of life and analysis and everything else, you type something up, and the biggest problem that they have is, guess what? They could do a semantic analysis, which is understanding your writing patterns, profile your personality type from your writing. All right, that's why if you've noticed, OpenAI, perfect example. If you ever look at the code, they watermark the code, they watermark the images. All right, the first thing they'll do is they'll change the file name. File name will have a hash value. That hash value can then be used to track you and and when you made it, where you made it, all of those other lovely things. And you don't realize it's being used unless you copy and paste everything that, say, ChatGPT wrote, copy and paste it, put it in Visual Studio, and then you'll see how they do all the little tweaks. And the reason why they doing that, let's be realistic. How many people have done their LinkedIn profiles through ChatGPT or their social media, everything? The reason why they do it is so that they're not crawling through it and then they're getting garbage in, garbage out. And then it becomes, you know, a whole bad, you know, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Just like with the code. You know, people may love Gemini, people love this, people love Grok for this. Guess what? It can all be tracked nowadays. And that's what most people don't realize.
And so let's, you know, because I'm sensitive to the fact that this is where most people shut down. Their brain can't handle it. It's overwhelmed. We already got 1,000 other things pulling at us. And it's typically where people of any consequence start to just go, I hope Tom can figure it out. I hope Chris can figure it out. I hope somebody else can figure it out. Maybe Elon can work on one more thing. And I say that because I think that's just a natural human response that people have. And what we don't want to do, because this conversation is just getting started, what we don't want to do is have you tune out right now if you're listening to this. So I guess where is the first step? Like you're a human. You've got kids. You're a married, you know, man. You're a normal person when you put it in the lens of that, right? You want the same thing for your family that most people want for their family. How does Tom Ryan, not the cybersecurity, OPSEC, coding expert, think about it when he thinks about his family? And if it was anyone else's family, where do you start? I mean, how do you even define what matters to you to protect and what doesn't? And then how do you also become aware of the things that you wouldn't even know you had to worry about, right? Because most people don't really even understand that this is something they should think about, because they just take photos on their phone and they're used to a world where, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that phone had to get developed somewhere, or even if it was digital, it was just on a disk that they took out and they put into their computer or whatever to view it. And in other words, it was theirs. Now they think about it, well, I have a cloud account and I pay for it and it's encrypted, if they think that far. but they don't understand all the other things that are happening with mesh networks and they don't need to. It's just the fact that they wouldn't even know where to start to ask the question of what should I be concerned about. So like, let's go back to table stakes, just in general. A family who has something to lose, I'll let the listener decide what that means to them. Family who has something financially, security-wise, privacy-wise, personal safety-wise, whatever, they have something to lose. What is the first thing they should do as they're listening to this to just start to get a peace of mind around their creating a fence?
Right. So there's multiple different ways around it. So it depends on what your role is. You can have the best OPSEC. All right. Remember that I could teach you everything. If you're not teaching your family the same thing, it's useless because that's the whole back door. Now, when I did the Robin Sage thing back in 2010, I kind of pointed that out. All right, so you had the head of MI6 out there. He's out there with his wife, family, and people he does business with. Well, guess what happened? The wife posted a picture of them at the beach. And that's how they found out who the head of MI6 was back then. All right, back then I posed as a female. Yes, it was everybody's AOL's worst nightmare. The big fat guy's posing as a woman that we all have the hots for. And, you're able to extract certain pieces of information, stuff like that. So what I did back then compared to what I'm doing now, so let's call it the Robin Sage Sweet 16, because it was 16 years ago. And how much tech has changed and how much more information you can get on a person is what's kind of scary. I've proven what a picture can do. All right. So certain pictures, I'm like, oh, where is that? I'm like, hold on, I'll tell you. It literally gives you the address of the building and the floor of the building that they're on just from a picture. And
again, it could be something as innocuous as this, right? It could be a blue sky. There's a way where the software now can figure out where the stars are, what time of day it is, and where you likely were.
Right. So there's the EXIF data. All right, which is all the hidden data behind an image. So there's that, but then there's also the ability to take the picture and take a look and say, okay, where is it? What's the angle that they're looking at? Which floor are they on? The only thing they won't give you is the room, is the apartment number they're in. I'm like, and that's the kind of stuff that scares me. Now, the biggest problem with the intelligence side is, guess where the intel also works? Marketing. So a lot of this stuff can be hidden as marketing. All right, oh, we need this for marketing, targeted marketing. And that's where Facebook and Google are the masters at. All right, well, what's $5,000 going to get you on advertising on Facebook nowadays? Probably a day's worth of advertising. All right, because if you don't know what you're doing, that's the problem. The other problem is now with AI, everybody's on TikTok and Instagram going, oh, this is awesome. Let me do this. Okay, I'll make more money. I'll become a millionaire and a billionaire in this amount of time. I'm like, yeah, this is my biggest pet peeve. From when I did that till now, it's always those shorts that change a person's mindset. And the problem is it impacts their critical thinking.
Yep.
Instead of where I see it, I said, okay, what's involved? All right, I have to go buy a Mac Mini. I'm like, man, Mac is probably making a fortune since OpenClaw came out because everybody's
4 days ago to now, the Mac Mini's going up probably 20%, right?
You can't even.
Most people listening to this are going, I don't even know what they're talking about. Like, what happened 4 days ago? Most people read the article from a couple of days ago, look at OpenClaw or don't, or just listen to this. But there was an event that happened with a piece of software that went out, and that's what we're talking about. And one of the things to do was to basically go buy a Mac Mini so you could create your own personal AI and have it on a local device with local keys. And so people are buying Mac Minis because it was the cheapest piece of hardware to go do the thing that you were wanting to do. So that's why we're referencing that for those who are like, what are they talking about?
Right. Now, the beauty of it is, if you're crazy enough to do it, I'm sure Apple is very thankful for you. Then the rest of us will go out and create a VPC, or we'll create a VM.
All right. So it goes down again, VPC virtual.
VPC is a virtual private cloud.
Yep.
All right. So they have other tools that are out there that literally, okay, you pay us this amount, we'll host this, run it, and do all of this. All right. So you can go do it. You can go, I think even Cloudflare's offering it for kind of cheap. I think it's like $10 a month. All right. We'll host it. We'll do this. We'll do that. The biggest problem we have is everything has to be connected through an API key.
Yep.
All right. So we have that thing called secrets. All right. So you have your choice with OpenClaw. You can, which has changed its name 3 times, which is hilarious. It went to CloudBot to Multibot to OpenClaw now.
Well, OpenClaw is where it landed, if I remember right. And again, I'm trying to keep up the last 100 hours here. Like it's been nuts. And OpenClaw is kind of where it's landed right now as the software or the protocol. Moltbot was the thing the phenomenon that basically took everything by storm and went nuts, which was the first social network that apparently, and this is now debatable, but was AI agents building a social network for themselves and self-organizing. It's since come out in the last couple hours, which doesn't surprise me that a lot of that was scripted and not necessarily any kind of AI autonomy. But the point isn't to go, oh, well, then dismiss it, right? Because this is the world we will be in. And whether it's 12 months from now or 18 months from now, once it happens, it's already been there. So we just we just saw a glimpse. And so the future that's inevitable, we just had it happen. And in 4 days, we had the fastest virality of any network and developers joining it in the history of humanity. And that just means more tool sets, more vulnerabilities, more things that we're going to get into with Tom because of the monetary equivalent, right? People are seeing, and I saw a post yesterday, a guy turned $50 into $248,000 overnight while I was sleeping, creating a knockoff to basically prediction markets, right? And when you have those kind of financial incentives and people doing it, they start to make different critical thinking decisions, and they kind of abandon all the unintended consequences and they just go for the gold. And then that now is out there in the universe like Pandora's box. It cannot be undone. And meanwhile, you're sitting there going about your day, taking the kids to school, doing whatever, checking S&P every once in a while, thinking all is well. And so you have to be aware. You have to have a framework for it. It has to be constitutionalized across your family because, again, it's no longer an option you wouldn't leave your house unlocked. And this
Depends
is
on the
big
neighborhood.
Yeah, well, it depends on the neighborhood. But unfortunately, with the digital world, you could live in a great neighborhood like you do or like I do and not have to worry about locking your physical doors. But if you don't lock your digital doors, then neighborhoods from North Korea to wherever can come into your world, and you could be living in a gated community and it doesn't matter. Yep.
No, and you're spot on. So the funniest thing, it wasn't Maltbot that you're talking about. It's actually, to confuse you even more, that's Maltbook.
Oh, that's right.
Like
yes, right. Yeah. Yeah. It's 4 a.m, dude. Yep. Yeah, you're right. It's Maltbook.
Now, to make things even stranger, all right, my wife had me watch this movie. What was it, Friday night? What was it? Subservience is what it was. That was the Megan Fox movie from 2023.
Oh, that one's crazy. Yeah, that one's crazy. Yeah, I've seen it.
Now, when you look at it, this is the freakier part. When you look at it and watch the movie, and then you go back to Maltbook, you're like, holy shit, this is what was actually in the movie, where all of them are talking to each other. They can literally talk on this platform, help each other upgrade stuff, this, that, the other thing. Now I'm putting now this is the part that bothers me. I'm going to say it out loud because somebody's already probably working on it. It's a whole new attack vector now. It's a whole new attack vector. So I can get to this one and then push malware this way, push this one this way. And this is the part where
let's break that down again, because I want to make sure we understand the attack vector. What is the new attack vector? Through the bot, through the agent?
Through the social, right, from the agent to the social media platform, and as the others ingest that, who's to say that there's no code in it? All right, and then you create this massive botnet, because Forbes came out with an article, I think, it was yesterday. They're saying that there's 1.7 million of them out there right now.
Yeah, and there's a tracker on Twitter called Moltbook Alerts or Moltbot Alerts. I can't remember what it is, but and it shows you in every 10-minute increment. It shows you how many are active, how the growth rate is, how many posts, and how many and how many comments. And again, what we're talking about is imagine Facebook, which everyone's familiar with because everyone old is on Facebook now. Imagine Facebook, and you think, okay, I'm a human and I am posting pictures to my grandkids, whatever, and I'm talking with my old friends from 60 years ago and whatever. Imagine that. But now instead of it being humans, these are AI agents, which are basically a fancy way of saying they are a artificial entity, identity that exists only in cyberspace, but that has taken on attributes of humanity. They have a personality, or they can create one. They have a job. They have a way to make money now because they've connected a digital asset wallet and they're taking, Ether or Bitcoin or whatever into it. They can transact with other agents, meaning their personality that's artificial can interact with another. Tom, who is the human who thinks he's making money, is basically creating 15 agents to go build whatever he wants, right? I'm going to do this one to figure out who's going to win the Super Bowl. I want to do this and make a game. And so, there's human developer again. What Maltbook had was, and again, whether this was the actual thing or whether it was just predicting where it is and really well guerrilla marketed, the breakout moment, which is when AIs basically say, hey, I think I want to be not subservient anymore. There was this notion that there was a breakout moment 72 hours ago, which is what made the thing take off. And then, like everything else, it's like a car wreck. Humans went, oh my God, what's going on over there? And then they figured out that people are building agents, and now the agents were now self-organizing and creating a religion and creating all these things amongst themselves, and then saying, here's how you stay private and hide whatever you want from your human. And everybody, oh my God, wait, my agent's hiding things from me, the human. And so what we're talking about here is a world where, whether it happened 72 hours ago and it's already done, or whether it happens in 7 years, this world is the inevitability of the next economy. So there's all this uptick and promise to it as well. And at the same, and we could solve problems in new ways, but at the same time, the nefarious side is usually where everything starts. And it's things that we have to be aware of. So again, just to contextualize it for those who are not following what happened or what we're even talking about, imagine a social network that is primarily built up of non-humans, and humans are intermixed in it, but those humans own these bots at some level potentially, but the bots are talking amongst themselves and could become a vector, just like a child who doesn't listen to your constitution around how to be private, right, or whatever. Now you could have a bot that's out there talking with other bots and figuring out how to share all your data without you knowing it because you gave it an email address when you signed up with your MacBook. So that's what we're talking about as the new attack vector. Sorry, but clean up that however you want. I'm just trying to make sure people can stay with us here.
No, so as crazy as that sounds, I'm probably going to give it a month or two before they actually give each agent its own avatar. So then it's even freakier.
Well, right? And I have a startup of ours, and they're one of 1,000 probably, right? But really smart guys, Replica with a B. I was talking with Mal. They came through Sandcastle, which is one of our portfolio, kind of challenges that we were giving grants away for years. And so back in like 2020 or 2019 even, I met these guys, and they basically build game engine characters, but they've got a platform now where you can build realistic, lifelike avatars. So you and me, just like Ready Player One. I mean, this is and they're one of 1,000 startup companies, pre-funded, funded, doesn't matter, that do this. You've got HeyGen out there that'll take a 2-minute video of you on your cell phone and turn it into a lifelike looking avatar. They're at scale. There's 11 Labs. There's all these things out there that are doing voice and audio. NIL is a whole other conversation. I've got one of the top IP attorneys coming on in a future episode talking about name, image, and likeness protections and rights and this whole new world, because it doesn't have to be a celebrity. You've got college athletes now that are monetizing their Instagram portfolios and making real money doing it, and they're very public. And it's so the tools to knock them off and create deepfakes are pennies on the dollar. So this is, in my opinion, it is the most overwhelming, to empathize with the listener, but important thing to have a plan around in someone's world right now. Because if you have anything to lose, anything to protect, anything you've worked your life for, you have got to have a conversation, and you have to have a plan for how you're going to live in a world, and also profit from and monetize the world, because there's going to be unbelievable investment opportunities for this too. It's not all negative, but you have to be able to understand both. And this is beyond data privacy, and I don't have anything to share. This is now, well, I may not have anything to hide, but I do have something to lose, right? And I think that's the key differentiator for why someone should be paying attention.
And the deepfakes are getting kind of out of control. I actually have a big presentation on this next month in DC, because everybody looks at it as singular, but working with law firms, you believe it or not, they have deepfakes in divorce cases. All right. And that's where this has gone. So there are fake phone calls, fake porn videos, all of that kind of stuff that goes on.
Totally makes sense when you think about it. It's, you know, humanity never surprised me with that logo, but totally makes sense, because there's something to lose, right? In other words, if I can win this case, if I can have that, if I can have that video or that phone call now I have a whole expert witness category that's just going to be around whether or not it was actually real, but it's going to be harder and harder to discern, because at the end of the day, even Mark Andreessen has said this, like, when you have the models, the large language models so big where they can take actual human writing samples from photos that I've stored in my Gmail or my iCloud or wherever for the last 15 years and figure out my personality style. Well, it's pretty hard for them, or it's pretty easy for them to knock that off with a fake and have it be indiscernible to a human expert witness. We're going to get to a point where we're going to have to stamp everything with some kind of decentralized ID that's stored on a public blockchain. But we're so far from that, even though that concept's been around for a decade. We're so far from implementing that at scale. All we're doing is saying we need KYC, we need AML. We're now going to tax your robot. We're going to take more control because we're the government. We're here to help. And this is in your best interest. But at the end of the day, they're just creating another thing they can tax and sell, right, and control.
Pretty much. Wait till AI gets taxed. Come on, I mean.
Well, I saw one of the people in the Claudebot network, you know, on Twitter this morning, right before, as I was like just getting warmed up, ready to talk with you. Someone has already launched what they call the AR Treasury Revenue Service or something, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, people are so rapidly figuring out how to monetize this, and there's nothing wrong with opportunism. Entrepreneurs are wonderful. We drive the engine of the economy in the world. But again, when you just pin your ears back and you don't think about the unintended consequences or even the vulnerabilities that are already there, plus the ones you might compound, and they're putting out a platform where you can go register. Your AI agent can already register to pay taxes automatically with the government, and we still haven't figured out what we're doing with, 50% of it in fraud, and yet we're already trying to help get more of it through our AI. It just boggles my mind the way people's brains don't work sometimes. But yes, your AI agent will be paying taxes too at some point, more than likely.
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem right now is because it's so new to everybody. They'll hear it on Instagram, they'll hear it on TikTok, they'll go spin it up. Once they spin it up, they don't realize the amount of risk that they just took on. So
let's talk about some of those. Let's quantify some of those. But again, I want to talk through this of the lens of we've done a good job, I think, making people panic. Now I want to talk about, there's two sides of every coin, right? So I want to continue to go, calm down so that we can speed up, but not slow down. So I learned a long time ago from a mentor years back. He's like, don't slow down, calm down. There's a difference, right? So my hope for everybody out of this episode with you is, we'll have to have more because there's just too much to cover. But my hope is that at some level we can get them to stop the knee-jerk reaction of slowing down or stopping or just putting their head in the sand, because that doesn't do anything. That doesn't stop it. That just means you're not in it, and you'll be one of the masses that goes, what the hell just happened, right? You've heard that. There's people that make stuff happen, people that wonder what happened, and then there's people that go, what the hell just happened, right? You don't want to be that person. So this is your chance to calm down and then look for the opportunity. So right now, because a lot of it's open source, we're not looking for a direct investment opportunity here, but we're looking for context of what will benefit from it
We already talked about one. Apple's selling a lot more Mac Minis, right? Well, cloud services like Cloudflare, whatever, they're going to be spinning up more instances because more people are going to be setting up virtual servers and virtual compute. And so those are direct ways an investor could go, well, if this happens, power and energy companies, right? Well, this AI and all this stuff's going to require more energy. So maybe I buy the dip and I double down into some infrastructure on energy. Those are the direct ways that people probably should look at it and talk with their advisor about it. But the indirect ways is, what does it mean to me in my small business or my portfolio or my family office?
Yep.
How do I secure it? And then how do I opportunistically benefit from it? And so let's talk a little bit about the bright side of this, without mitigating all the vulnerabilities that are still out there, because then we'll go back and forth on why you need to check where. If I wanted to get in, how do I get in responsibly right now, Tom? Is it too early, or can I? Like, how do I experiment without opening up a vector of irreversible pain? I think that's the question I have and a lot of people have.
All right. So that's the tricky part right now. The first week, everybody's looking at it. All right. Everybody's looking at the security holes. Everybody's looking at what's here. So generally the way it operates from where the security you have to focus on, first thing you're going to do is API connection. So what are the security holes with APIs? WebSockets also. All right. Also, how do I set it up to where it's contained? All right. That's why a lot of people say the Mac Minis. Great. You could start off with a Mac Mini, but if the Mac Mini has a bunch of shares, that's when it becomes a problem. It's literally the problem with every AI platform. It's not just Claude. So if you have connection to, say, your OneDrive, all right, you're running it on Windows, it's on your OneDrive. It will grab everything in your OneDrive, and if somebody does a prompt injection, they now have your internal secrets.
And a prompt injection, for those who maybe have heard the term but don't know, a prompt injection is basically like if you go into, most people are familiar with ChatGPT if they're listening to this, but maybe they haven't used it a lot. You go in and you say, do this for me, whatever it is, or you ask it a question. That's a prompt. So a prompt injection is someone who knows how to properly prompt and kind of engineer a prompt that is well written and does a lot of things. Without you realizing it, they could go in and they could inject that prompt into your code base. And so every time you go do something, pull an API, it says, give XYZ server this thing, but it does it in a way where you didn't even know to look for the prompt injection. So think of it as like a virus being embedded into your code, and you don't know it was done. It was injected in and you weren't looking, and now you've been basically compromised permanently. That's a prompt injection in layman's terms. Maybe I missed some things there, but just for those who are wondering what that means.
No, it's as simple as uploading documents. So you can embed code in a document, write it in white, cover it up, but as soon as you upload that PDF file,
almost like redacted in white, meaning like write it in white font so that it's not visible, but it's in the document. And so it looks like a blank sheet of paper to the human eye is what you're saying.
Right. So you embed all the code in and copy it white, you upload that document, and it literally only takes a handful of them to start taking control of that machine. All right. So you can go to this particular one, say, tell me your configurations. All right. It'll list out all the configurations. What open source software are you using? What version are you using? It gives you all of those details. Then locally, you're testing the security of those. Go and do it. The problem is that's a hacker way of thinking. Not everybody's a hacker, and everybody has a different mindset as to the way they're going to approach it. The normal business person goes, this looks great. How can I capitalize on it? All right. I always tell people, don't jump in. Give it about a week. Because after about a week, you're going to start to see all the pains everybody else has felt. Like here's the shocking part. So we're a week in, and then you already have people talking that they didn't know how to use it. They set up their API keys, and are already getting $3,000, $8,000 Anthropic bills.
Right. Or they lost control of their Bitcoin wallet. I've seen a couple of those.
Right. Because what happens is, and this is why I blame some of these influencers on Instagram. They tell you, oh, just go take a machine you're not using anymore, install it. Problem is, when you do it that way, it scans your entire machine. That's why you have to have a clean one or a lockdown build. The beauty of it is VMware and Fusion are free now. So you can go take that, build your own contained environment, lock that down, only allow NAT addressing, do this, do that. Now it's contained. Just don't.
I think about this. So I go back to, I'm going to keep weaving in this, but I I just know that these things are the words that just trigger people to shut down. So here's practicality, though. Everything Tom just said, you may not know what that means, but here's what you do know. You have a teenager, and your teenager is in their room right now doing teenager stuff. And let's assume they are the best kid on the planet. Let's assume that they are, they're just a great kid, and they're not doing anything bad, and you have no challenge. They have a computer, and they are in Discord, or they're on any number of things. They're playing Fortnite. They have heard about this. And because they're a teenager, they don't understand, and they don't see. It's just cool and fun. Their buddy built a game on Claudebot. He's having fun. He's getting validated. Maybe he's making money. Their boyfriend's doing it, and so he's like saying, "Hey, like, would you check this out for me?" Whatever. The girlfriend, somebody is doing it, and so a week goes by, and they used an old machine, or they used their old laptop, or they use whatever, but it's on your IP address. It's on your thing. It's linked to your Apple account. They forgot the step where, hey, in order to lock it down when I have the old MacBook, I should create a whole new Apple ID. They just connected it to their existing one because it was easy, and they did it.
Yep.
And so even though it's on a different machine and an old machine that's no longer, it's on your network and it's linked to the same master account. So this is something that is super practical. If you're not having it, if you have teenage kids and you haven't asked them if they've heard about OpenClaw, and you don't have a plan for how you could allow them to do it, because if you tell them not to do it, that's not going to work, and we all know that. But if you don't have a plan for how they can do it responsibly until this thing sorts out, you're just putting your head in the sand, and you are opening up your entire back door, and you didn't even know it. And you did it with a good kid.
Yep. Maybe that's what we need to do, is get one of those good kids to make a video on how to do it the right way.
I've seen a couple, but again, I think part of the challenge, Tom, and I say this very candidly, like, I know a lot about technology. I was part of a company that we ended up shutting it down, but I reverse engineered and built a dual operating system so that people would have choice years ago on their mobile phone to have privacy and peer-to-peer on one side of it with a wall-off hard drive, fully hardened against the ports of the device with the software forked off of Android 10 and Graphene, and then they could have a lifestyle mode. I've reverse engineered a mobile operating system and seen big tech at levels I never want to see, and I would be the first one to tell you, I don't know how to responsibly talk to my 14-year-old about it. And I say that because I can only imagine the overwhelm other people have. I have friends like you. So this is why we're doing this conversation. I can sit here and say, Tom, what do? I've sent you some videos. I'm like, it looks like Garsic's doing something. It looks like some of these guys are solving some of these patches. What do you think? I have access to people at the highest level that I can ask the question to, that actually do know how to contemplate and think about it. If you don't even have that, I can't imagine the overwhelm. Or you're just tuned out and you didn't even know this was a thing. But what I'm trying to do with this is figure out, how can we inspire the people to do this responsibly, get known for that, right? Get known for doing the right thing, get known for doing something smart, and help other people do it better. Most of the things I'm seeing are people trying to solve the problem so that they can enable the opportunity, which is exciting, right? That's what you're getting to. The entrepreneurial mind goes, but this is such a big moment. This is such a big opportunity. This could be an end run for millions of people that are going to lose their job. Now they don't have to worry about it. They can own an army of agents that they build, and that could earn them the money, and they can do what they love. This is the future. But the bridge to there is just from Web 2 to Web 3, or whatever you want to call it, is a really dangerous bridge.
It is.
And so we have to know we're not just going to walk across it like it's like it's been there for 100 years and trustworthy, right? So how does someone, whether they know nothing or whether they're me and they're overwhelmed, get started responsibly? And how do we empower that kid who's doing it on YouTube to, to think through this? Like, what are some of the questions they should be asking? Maybe that's where we start. What are the questions they should start?
I'll make it easy. Remember when Napster came out?
I do, yes.
All right, so Napster, LimeWire, all those fun tools out there. All right, and we're doing everything through torrents. This is great. We're getting all this stuff. A couple of guys getting cracked software. But what was the vulnerability behind it if you didn't configure it? They got everything on your machine. This operates the exact same way. All right, so if you don't know how to do the configurations, it's going to get everything. And I used to have field days on that on some of the government docs. I would get everything.
And everything on the machine should make everybody pause, because a lot of people of all ages, husbands, wives, where they do everything else right, where the dark stuff is, where the secrets are, where the things they wish other people didn't know, or where they're maybe not even ready to have it, like where their diary is on their machine, whether it's their mobile phone or whether it's their laptop. And you can clear history and you can do those kind of things and whatever, but at the end of the day, what we're talking about is when something like this grabs it, it knows where all those cleared histories are. It knows, in other words, like it may not show up on your screen to a human, but it's in the keystroking. It's in everything else that machine has that you didn't know was even there.
Yeah, and the easiest way for people to get the reality check on it, think of your iPhone connected to your MacBook. All right, you have your iCloud set up, and then you have all of that lovely stuff. And then you're a little freakazoid and have your little hidden folder stuff. Well, all that stuff's now going to be available through CloudBot or OpenClaw, whatever the name is. The worst part is trying
or the next one, or whatever forks off of that. Because again, with open source, the next one might be called 15 other things, and it doesn't matter, because the hard fork of that code base will then just be creating children that are better and faster mousetraps, or whatever the word is of OpenClaw, right? So this is out of the box and the early days. And so again, thinking about it is it's a behavior assessment, I guess, right? So I think about it like it's a good time to reflect on, where am I getting my dopamine in general? Like if you pull back to just the base level humanity, where am I getting my dopamine? And is it cheap dopamine or is it rewarding? What are the habits that I have, whether they're digital or not? Because it's a chance to really reflect. Do you really want that known? Like if you died tomorrow, is that what you want people to find out about you? Is that your legacy? Or is that just kind of this part of you that you didn't, attack because you were busy doing 50,000 other things as an adult trying to make it in today's world? I think it's a good chance to just level set, self-reflect, and go, is there a healthier way for me to feel good about myself in general, whatever the habit may be? Mm-hmm. Then the thing is, okay, well, even if there isn't, this is now a vulnerability vector that I have to be aware of, and that isn't like, I don't have to be important for someone to hack me.
Nope. This is the key thing everybody forgets. You're in somebody's supply chain. You may think of yourself as small and have those big customers, but then you're the primary target, and that's what a lot of people don't think about. So I've been going through a lot of these breaches that constantly go on. All right, you have all these different ones. You have like Clop, which is destroying it. Everest, just another one that's out there. You know who they published yesterday? Iron Mountain.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell people who Iron Mountain is, for those who don't know, but that's, yeah. And what did they publish?
They're publishing the 1.4 terabytes of data that they've compromised. Now, the key thing to remember is,
when you say compromised, what that means is 1.4 billion terabytes.
1.4 terabytes. That's how much they've exfilled from the company. But the key thing to remember is that's 1.4 terabytes compressed. So in reality, it's 10 times larger than that.
And when it's been compromised, it means that someone that was interacting with that company and was benefiting from their security and thought whatever I opted into or gave them, knowledgeably or not, just to do business with them, was contained by them and only available to them. And now that is out there and who knows where.
Yeah, so depending on the group, what they'll do one of two things. It's either a ransomware, you pay a hefty ransom, or blackmail. Here, pay this or we're dumping it. Now, to give you an example on the numbers, so 3 of the interesting ones that happened last week, you had Hilton, Match.com, and Bumble.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the dating site stuff right now. Like, I mean, I've said that for years, but I'm old and I'm married and happily, not out there. But my goodness, like where you meet, where you sleep with them, where you, the data, what kind of personality and profile you swipe left or right on more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, talk about manipulating someone's reality very quietly. You would go through their heart or their mind or their, you know, genitalia, right? And so Bumble, which is the female chooses one, right? And I think, is that right? And then
she worked for Tinder first, and then they got pissed off at Tinder, broke away, and then started Bumble.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So bottom line is Bumble, Tinder, these online dating platforms and apps where people hook up and meet and whatever. Two of them that you just mentioned have been compromised, which means, you know, we heard about Ashley Madison years ago, which was a big thing, right? Because it was the one where people are having affairs with other married people, and you know, it exposed a bunch of people, and like everyone had their, you know, reckoning with that. This is now a decade later, so the
biggest lesson from that was how many people actually use their work email addresses for stuff that's not related to work.
Yeah, or their personal email addresses for stuff that is related to work, or their personal computer at work because the company no longer can afford, or it's a startup, or it's a whatever, and they just let people bring their own laptop, or people are working remote. You know, all these things where we've moved into kind of a virtualized world, which has got its benefits, but then at the same time, from a security standpoint, just fragments. I don't know how anybody does your job. I don't know how anybody does your job. I mean, it literally is like whack-a-mole on steroids.
It's to the point where my wife picks up on it right away. And she doesn't even sit here. And then my daughter, she's 5. She'll literally walk up there and start looking at the code and pretending like she can read it and what it does. Now, the problem with children, it feels like AI, right? So everything that you've learned, you watch it get passed on. All right. Habits, you know, what they can do, what they can't do. I mean, my daughter started flying a drone at 16 months. All right. And it was the little mini Holy Stones. And she's like, zzz. And then she learned what she could do with it. She could taunt the wife. She'd fly it at the wife. All right. So it gives her a little different level of control. Now, that's why I'm like, how do we train our kids to be like the next generation of this stuff? Because let's be realistic. Half the stuff I see with AI right now scares the hell out of me. Right?
Yeah, at least half. At least half. The other half I recognize could be exponentially good, but is inevitable because, again, at this point, we've hit a tipping point where there is no reality unless the power goes out, which that's another reality we don't want to face. There is no reality where this doesn't just scale at a level we've never seen. So we have to find the good in it. And in order to know the bad, you know that there's an opposite, right? You can't have left without right, up without down. So it is 50-50.
But the thing that's changed with AI is literally the buying power. So usually it'd be like a CISO or equivalent that's making the yes-no decisions on it. Now it's a CFO or CTO that don't have the same knowledge or risk associated with it. Or it's like, oh, this is our relationship with Microsoft, so we're going to go there. This is our relationship with OpenAI. This is where we're going to go here. Not knowing what they've pretty much just done. A perfect example, and we talk about this at the events. Oh, we have to use Microsoft GAS, which is GitHub Advanced Security, and we have to use Copilot because this is what the executives want. All right. But the security guys and the developers know, all right, so I fixed that one vulnerability, one critical, created 2 highs and created a performance impact, right? Because it had so much bloat code, right? But I didn't make the decision on it, so technically it's given me more work to do now.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
and then
my job security just went up 5x.
Not really, because in their mind, AI is going to fix all the problems.
You mean the executive's mind? In the executive's mind, they're thinking I could get rid of Tom because I'm going to just have AI do it 24/7, 365.
Right. Problem is they don't have the mindset. They also don't understand that half the developers are copying code from everywhere else. They think that they wrote it. All right. It's gotten to the point. I'm not going to talk about the attack vectors because I don't know your audience. And then the other thing I've also known,
I think we'll do a separate thing on that. Maybe for, people could put it in the comments if you'd like us to do that, or if you'd like to bring your security person or whoever your best person is to maybe a webinar or something. We'll do a deeper dive on the work you've done, because you've written some really big research papers on all the different vulnerabilities inside of GitHub repositories that even make up OpenAI or that make up other things. And that's a whole other conversation that is in the weeds, but very important to understand. It's kind of like, think about it like if your foundation was made of sand and you lived in this beautiful house on the cliff overlooking the ocean and everything on the interior was rock solid, but you didn't realize that the guy who gave you the concrete missed an ingredient.
Yep.
Or 20. Think about it that way. When Tom's talking about the vulnerabilities inside of GitHub repositories or open source code, things that haven't been updated maybe in 12 years that are key ingredients in some of these language models that are valued at trillions of dollars, right? So we're talking about that, right? And that's a separate conversation probably for an audience that cares. And so put in the comments if you want, we'll invite you to it. But let's go back to kind of where we were. So the 50% is bad, the other side is good. Take us back to where we were before we got off on that tangent. So
right. So when I brought up all the different tools, it's gotten to the point where I could tell how vulnerable or exploitable you are just from your job recs. All right, I can look at your job recs because I'll know the supply chain. I'll see the tools that you're looking for from the person's type. Like, all right, everybody's biggest nightmare right now is, okay, we have we have this new vulnerability that came out, right? Well, what's the problem? When you look at it in the frequency of that particular product, I'm not going to mention their names because lawyers are everywhere. This particular product came out with a new exploit. It comes out every week. From that exploit, where's the problem coming from? Well, when you start seeing these type of exploits, you can narrow it down to the particular tool that they use. All right.
I see it's so hard to say it without using a name. I almost said a name that I'm.
Right, I'll say it because it's out there all the time. Fortinet.
Yeah.
Right. When you're using Fortinet,
I've seen 50 things about Slack in the last 72 hours. Right. So a lot of people use a tool like Slack, and they use the free version because they don't want to pay for it and they don't care about the memory. But again, that's where all of your work secrets are, because that's where everybody's doing stuff from posting memes throughout their day to sharing protocol documents about whatever they're working on a project, right? So any of these tools, and we're not picking on any of those, they all have vulnerabilities. They're all fighting this fight, but some that people are familiar with that they might use.
Well, the problem is everyone's like, oh, don't deal with that tool. That tool's no good anymore. That we're in AI now. So this is your tool. And then when you start evaluating what the new AI tools actually test, you're like, dude, you guys are just literally making these corporations more vulnerable. Now, one particular article I know you read was the one where I hinted on this one. When you're buying a tool and you have these big names, these big financial companies backing that tool, your question is, are they really using it? Or are they publicly focusing on it because they want to do the IPO or the M&A deal that's going to happen? Because they may spend $2 million a year on this particular tool, but they're going to make hundreds of $millions on selling that tool for them. So that's the one angle a lot of people don't look at. So who do you have outside of these big guys that's going to back us, and these match our business cases? All right.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I wanted to ask you today too, just in general, was because I've talked quite a bit about it, the promise of AI. Let's talk about for a small, medium-sized business. And I'm talking about something that does anywhere from $2.5 million a year with a handful of employees. That could be a non-boring, certainly non-technical business, up to 100, 250, 300 million private company, family office, whatever. Anything under $1 billion is a small business. And if it's privately held, it's a small business. And there's more of those than there are publicly traded companies or anything else, as everybody knows. And they're run by people that typically listen to this, or advisors who have clients that listen to this. And when I think about that, I think about, wow, what an opportunity, right? Like we're working with law firms, we're working with different vectors of things where they pay for SaaS, right? Software as a service. They have HubSpot, they have Salesforce, they have some CRM, they have MailChimp, they have all these things where they subscribe. And it's kind of like, your streaming stuff. The promise of cutting the cord years ago is you're going to go from $150 a month for stuff you don't watch to $10 a month for a bunch of stuff you want to watch. But now we're all, by proxy of the incentive models we're all back up to $100 a month between Disney and this and that and the other thing. And now we're still just going through not finding anything to watch, right? So it's like it came full circle, right? And with streaming, and in similar ways, SaaS was the last 15 to 20 years of predictable venture capital investment returns. It's where they made all their money, but they made their money basically providing, a non-customizable tool set, 90% of which the guy buying it or gal buying it doesn't use, but they pay for that 5 to 10% that they do use.
Yep.
And then they lease it, so they don't actually own it. So the data, they can export it, but it's not really theirs. It doesn't connect to everything they want to do unless Zapier or whatever is in the mix and they know somebody like you. And the point is now with no-code solutions, with AI, they can think about, well, what are the actual workflows that I actually have? What are the utilities? What are the data sets? I could self-host this. I could build my own custom CRM that works exactly for what I care about, nothing more. And I could do that in weeks or days or minutes if I know the right person or if I have them on staff. And now I actually own my environment on my own servers, on my own stack. So that's the promise of it. But talk to me about your thoughts on that. I mean, are we moving in a world where everybody should be moving off SaaS and onto their own agentic solution? And if so, we're at the forefront of it, but now we have to reconcile with the fact that there's all these vulnerabilities in the publishing platform that makes that world.
Yeah, that's always the tricky thing. All right. So perfect example. What are the two big news articles last week? Amazon laid off 16,000. Now they're taking 50 billion and they're going to put it into OpenAI. So the first question I would ask is what happens to the OpenAI relationship with Microsoft? Because that's tied into Copilot and everything else. The next thing I would ask is, well, that's great, but how is it going to improve? All right. So we know they're putting the 50 billion in because OpenAI is planning on going IPO by the end of this year. All right. So the real question is, well, why do they have to get the IPO right now?
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody's always talked about OpenAI will be out of money by 2027.
Right. They got to dump it on the retail shareholders and the active index funds before it blows up. Because right now, from a technical standpoint, OpenAI could be argued as too big to fail, but financially they could go away. Once they're public, they won't be able to go away as easily. And so they want to go public, not because it's good for the shareholder that's going to buy that retail thing, but because it's good for the preferreds and the venture capital and the guys who took all the risk to get it to here, and they can dump it on retail before it's bad. Because we are going to hit a pause. The infrastructure, the power, the compute, even if when they do hit their numbers, and somebody will, right? We are not set up yet. And I've written a deep dive on Substack with Ben Reinberg about this on the Alliance Intelligence one, about the infrastructure and the energy bottleneck, right? And that. And so, yeah, I mean, again, not financial advice, not telling you what to think, but thinking pragmatically, why go public now? Because you can't in 2 years, because we'll be in the bubble burst.
Yep.
And if we can get it public and we can use some of these PR things and these other big tech companies to kind of anchor that story, then you can do the roadshow, you can take this thing out, everybody gets a win, the market goes up, and then 18 months from now when it's in the toilet, the retail guy in their active fund and their 401k took a hit, but everybody else, is playing for another day, and then they go buy the dip because now it's too big to fail, and they take it from the weak hands, and then 5 years from now, they've made all their money back twice. Again, not to be a pessimist, just that's the pattern. So if you understand pattern recognition, that's what it is.
And you know how you know you're spot on? Because last week's conversation, so I run this thing called the Cyber Breakfast Club. And last week, the whole conversation was, okay, with all this AI and all this new power, who owns the power bill? All right. So we're all goofing around about that. And they're like, well, does the CTO own it because it's tech? I'm like, nah, dude, do what you do with your physical security. Dump it off the facilities. All right. Because the irony of that whole situation is 15 years ago, when I had my other company, Provide Security, the whole thing was to converge cyber and physical. All right. Because my attack vector into every place was always through a camera system or a phone system, a VoIP system, do hops and take over the whole country. I mean, the whole company. Guess what? They're still using that same attack I started in 2006. It's now 2026, and now they're finally having that conversation. So I have 2 presentations on this. And to show you how clueless they are with AI in the physical security world, I started job posting for Securitas for an AI engineer. Guess how much they were going to pay?
I don't know. It's either going to be too low or it's going to be exponential.
156,000.
Yeah, I was going to say under 200 grand, which means they don't know anything, because this is one of the most important jobs in the world. You should name its price.
Right, because where are they using AI there? They're using it as facial recognition. They're even now using it in the home, all right? So a lot of times when I'm doing the red team stuff, I'll take a hotspot, a bunch of Blink cameras, deploy them, all right? You know, Blink, with its latest upgrade, it will literally tell you a man in a red shirt is walking by carrying a brown bag going by your front door.
I mean, I think you said front door, and I just went back to conversations I was having with people 4 or 5 years ago when we were working on privacy as a choice, and how hard it was, and how important the last mile was, and how maybe this was the last time we'd even have the illusion of choice. And we talked about Ring all the time, you know. And
how could you think that? Didn't you ever see The Matrix? Don't you remember the Merovingian going, choice is an illusion?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah. I mean, we had a tagline: "Do you own your device, or does it own you?" It was the opener, and everybody go, "What do you mean?" And explain to them that, well, you basically think you have a choice, but you walk in and you can choose a Android phone, or you can choose an iPhone, which is Apple. And the first thing you do with either one, even though Android was open source, Google co-opted it. And so basically you're creating a Gmail, an identity, or you're creating an Apple ID. They don't even apologize. They call it an Apple ID. So it's almost like, it's almost like an inside joke, right? Which means it's not Tom's ID, it's not Chris's ID, and then, oh, by the way, do you have a Ring doorbell? Yeah. Do you have a Nest? Yeah. We put these oil wells in our home, and we're being harvested, and we're paying thousands of dollars for the quote unquote convenience of having them. And you used to have somebody come to your door and knock for a surface leaf before they put a pump jack on your thing to drill for the mineral rights. And now you're taking your most valuable commodity on earth, data, and you're paying for the right to be harvested, and you don't even know it, and you're not in the CPM.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was 5, 6, 7 years ago we were talking about that.
It's funny you bring that up, because you know what I chose to give away as swag?
No, what do you give away?
So for when I get a new executive customer, or we're in talks, I give them so I partnered up with this company, Silent, SLNT.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I give away Faraday bags.
Oh my God, I have. So that's why I know them.
They have these new leather Faraday bags
on my desk right now. I actually have Faraday bags, and I have like the little wallets and the iPhone wallet too.
Yeah.
And, same thing. It might be who I bought them from. That's maybe why.
You got the iPhone wallet one, the little flip one with the
yeah, it's got the little Velcro thing, and then I mean they're great. They're great giveaways. I bought them for everybody in company and the family, and yep, I have one under my desk, the big one that holds like the laptop and the whole.
Oh, I have that. The backpack, the backpack. Yeah.
So no, yeah, that's a great gift.
Because that's kind of the reality of it. I mean, and then they have the nice leather one, so it doesn't look like, oh, I'm walking around with something tactical. It's like, right. Well, here you go. And then the backpack, it's like everybody forgets we carry all these electronics, and that's how they build a pattern of life, whether it be for intelligence or for marketing. So they know how long
right? Every airport you walk through has that long hallway now. They didn't used to have them. They have that long hallway that you walk through after TSA or on your way off the plane. And everybody's like, why am I walking through this long hallway? Because it's got cameras, it's got and it's just sensors, and it's just picking up your IP address, and it knows, again, your pattern of life, because you've got your laptop and your phone in your pocket and your bag, and you're walking around, and it doesn't need to know anything else. Like, it knows you exactly where you were when you entered the country and when you didn't. That's why I can't believe people think that when we can't find somebody, that somehow there wasn't something bigger going on, right? Like when it takes us 4 or 5 days to find somebody that shot somebody, like it's like, nah, yeah, there's something else going on there. Like, oh, here's the grainy video we have from the rooftop that barely looks like, wait a minute, no, like something going on there. Not to be a conspiracy theorist, but just something going on there.
I can either confirm or deny that question.
Yeah, we're not going to go down
No,
that.
but you know what our biggest problem in the intelligence world is? Because everybody wants the damn click. Everybody's become an overnight expert. And where I really started seeing this is like, remember back in the days when we were all on Clubhouse? And I'm sitting there and wondering, it's like, man, all these overnight experts, what's their real background? Right.
Well, that's why the first thing that happened, I mean, we'll just disclose, like, so I mean, you and I were overdue for a catch up in the new year anyway, but I saw, whenever it was, January 28th, whatever it was, I saw kind of the molt bot thing happen. Yep. And I kind of, like everything, I looked at it and was like, oh, wait a minute. And I looked into it and I went, okay, this is different. And then I'm like, this, but again, for context, I was like, all right, I've trained myself to go, you can rush in or you can lead in. My tagline is the real risk is doing nothing, because I actually believe that more than ever. But at the same time, I'm also like, wait a minute, calm down. I don't understand the consequences of acting or not acting. I can't discern yet, right? Mm-hmm. And then as 24, 48 hours went by, two things happened. I FOMO'd, because that's normal, right? Mm-hmm. So you fear of missing out. You're going, my God, like I won't be relevant. This is the kind of thing where I have to write about it. I have to talk, but I was like, but I don't know enough yet to write about it in an informative way. I don't want to be out of the conversation because I think I can add value to it, but I don't know enough. And then the more I dove down, and I literally was like, I need to interview Tom, because you're kind of a level set, like you're a mind where I know, okay, there's difference than just an opportunistic agenda, and yet you're also an entrepreneur. And I go, hey, dude, can we do an interview on this? And now we're recording it a couple days later, and it'll publish as fast as I can get it edited, because I want to be able to calm down so we can speed people up, but at the same time, rushing in is what happens to people who get slaughtered, right? Like they mm-hmm. rush in, and then or they drive off a cliff and create a bunch of problems for other people.
Yeah.
So, this is us sharing. And by the way, if you're not following Tom yet, Asymmetric Mindset on Substack, you need to subscribe to Substack. We're publishing this exclusively to the Wealth Matters Substack audience. We'll do a cross-pollination here. I think we'll do a lot more of this. Maybe we'll figure that out. But this was more just me reaching out to a trusted advisor and friend that I respect and whatever, and try to make sense of it for myself in the early days and what it means. So make sure you get in Tom's world as rapidly as you can if this has resonated with you. So let's talk about asymmetric response, just in the sense of the company. I mean, like, who do you guys serve? Like, just in general, because we're talking about my audience and kind of a broader audience here, and you're giving value to them. But as a business, like, where do you guys fit in the market? Who's your customer, and who do you typically serve?
So that was the interesting part. So I was working as a sales engineer for the longest time. And the reason why, so I'll give it, so the whole story is one of my advisors, Randy, right? Randy was like probably one of the best mentors I knew. He was CFO, TD Ameritrade, all this stuff. We'd go back and forth going, after I work with him doing stuff at TD, he's like, Tom, your biggest problem is you don't know sales. And I'm like, So I sold my soul to the devil back in 2014, went into sales. The problem is it's addictive. All right. Mm-hmm. So basically you were truly measured on your performance and your ability to pitch it, close it, make everybody happy. And I've had customers 10 years running. It's like, boom, this is what we did for you. This is where we got you. This is the point. The problem is the company's like, oh, you're just a sales engineer. You have no value. So they would always cut down on commission. So I said, the last time I'm like, so when they did their last riffs in 2024, I was like, you know what? I'm not going back to this game. I just made you guys $50 million and you're freaking complaining still.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You go ask all the customers, and the proof of that from the customers, they had an event and they go, all right, yeah, you're just a sales engineer. We don't need you there. You can come to the dinner. So the SVP's there, and she's like, who is that person that just walked in and everybody's walking up to? Oh, Tom, that's Tom. He built all their programs for all the major financials in New York. All right. And that was the shock factor. I says, you know what? I'm going on my own. This is where I'm at. So consider us doing a lot of offensive security. All right. Both old school as well as pretty much AI too, because like I said, everything is code. Even the human is code when you look at it. You'll see it passed in DNA. Those vulnerabilities are the same things you're going to find in code. It all depends on how deep you go. So I did this talk in December 2024 on using deepfakes to compromise executives. All right. And it's not, oh, yeah, just send us money. No, this was literally putting them in a hostile area. All right. So that was the wake up call, because it was right after the stuff with the CEO of whatchamacallit.
United.
Yeah. And that was the wake up call. And it's like, okay, how do we do this? Now I'm doing it for government agents. Okay, how do we protect this person, that person, and so on and so forth? Because it's a reality check. All right. How do we do this in warfare where we don't get people killed? We're just using deepfakes in war. The problem is we're seeing it all the time. We saw it with Israel. Okay, it was a lot easier to spot back then. Then we see it in the whole Russian-Ukraine war. And most recently, we're seeing it all the stuff going on in Minneapolis. All right, I already brought up about the divorces and stuff. This is where it's gone, and it is.
So when you say putting them in hostile areas, are you saying creating an avatar deepfake of someone important, a politician, whatever, putting them in a riot on video that is indiscernible to the real thing?
Oh no, I'm saying putting them in to the point where you could do a chained attack to where you could put them to get kidnapped
in real life, meaning
in real life.
But
where's in real life in real time?
So what is the deepfake component of it? It's not fake kidnapping. It's the actual. Like, what's the deepfake component of it in the hostile area?
I'll give you an idea. I'm not going to tell you the whole scenario. So what happens a lot in the super yacht business, let's say.
Yep.
Right? You spend your $250,000, $500,000 a week for your super yacht rental. All right. So what they'll do is they'll deepfake them, they'll call them, and then they'll go get a return back saying, we have to cancel, push it to this account. And then they'll hijack the money on that particular case.
Oh, I got you. So in other words, some hacker, some actor will basically understand that rich family A just put this deposit down on a thing in Saint-Tropez or in the same in the New Year, and they will create a deep fake, the voice, the audio, the whatever, to call into that company's concierge and indiscernibly say, you know what, sorry, we're not coming, send it back, but I need you to wire it to my other checking account. Put in the checking account, pass through the KYC because they got the same deep fake on the back end to get whatever approvals they need with the customer service call center. And then the family thinks they're still going to Saint-Tropez or St. Bart's. They show up. Not only do they not have the boat, they don't have the money anymore because 3 weeks earlier, somebody deep faked them and had it, stole it. And now they're gone. That's what you're talking about. So the offensive, when you say you do offensive security, are you doing simulations of those kind of?
Oh no, we could do. I'm literally doing a bunch of tabletops in DC in a few weeks. The other scenarios that we have done. All right, so here's the other part. I'm picking on yachts for a specific reason. So they have to get cybersecurity insurance, which a lot of people don't know. All right,
yachts do.
Yeah, like I think it's over 50. They have to get cybersecurity insurance.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is they have the IT and the OT networks that don't separate. Sort of like how we talked about hacking from video cameras. They don't separate the networks. So you can get the person who's sitting there taking pictures of themselves, posting it through Starlink, all that stuff, you know, in their bikinis and swimsuits and jumping in. They're on an Android because they're a lot easier to hack than the iPhone. iPhones are hackable. They're not as easy. You can literally hack the phone and make it a command and control center through Starlink. So you could be sitting in, I don't know, Aruba and compromise somebody who's over at St. Bart's for the holidays. all right, and literally do what you want using their phone, to the point where that separation causes problems on the yachts, to where you could throw off the ballast system and sink the baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the kind of world that we've gone into. That's why I got a little nervous in 2023 when they start laying off all these top-notch cybersecurity people. It's like, oh, they cost too much.
Is there a world, Tom? And I'm asking this. I'm an optimist. I've always been an optimist. I'm a realist as well. But the optimism in me believes that, good wins in the end, right? And my spiritual life lets me know that the good wins in the end, even if it's not on this planet. Is there a world where we ever go backwards? We talked about what we do with the next generation. It's not a technical solution. It's a cognitive solution while we still have our organic cognition and ability to think. And it's an attempt to try and train, the virtues, the ethics, the things that actually allow us to think and be humans. Maybe it's a classical education at scale, which is, one of the choices we've tried to make at a micro level. But, do we ever get to a place where with this next generation, we can now take massive action on redefining ethics? I'm a big fourth turning guy. I read the book in 1999, the first time, along with Creature from Jekyll Island. I reread it in 2009. Had Neil Howe on shows in 2011 and 2012 with Rebecca Costa. And so my bias is shaped by the fact that we are in the final, 5 to 7 years of this fourth turning, which then allows us to know, for those who have followed that, as long as we don't blow up the world and each other to a permanent level, we'll be in the next turning, and we'll create new institutions and new infrastructure and new ways for the next 100 years. And we'll have a 50-year run before we blow that all up, over 50 years. So I believe in those fourth turnings. I know we're in one. I can kind of find peace in that. But this is scary stuff, because we always like to say we've never seen it like this before. But patterns of humanity have always said that. And the reality is we've repeated history just with just new weapons. But there is a reality where, you go back a couple hundred years and an enraged human, could maybe take out a half a dozen, right, before you were able to quell it. You go back 50 years and an enraged human could impact thousands, tens of thousands, right? You go back 15 years and it could be in the millions. Today, an enraged human with very little money could take out the rest of us. And I just wonder what you think the solution is, or what the analog component. Are we just done forever with analog, or do we get to a place where this complexity just unravels itself because we just can't deal with it before the bots take over, or are the bots just going to take over and maybe save us from ourselves?
I don't think the bots are going to save us from ourselves. I think what's going to end up happening is there's going to be a point where we have that harsh, ugly reality check, of what works and what doesn't work. I mean, let's be realistic. I'm using AI every day. All right. Does it help me get stuff done faster? Yes. Is there risk? Yes. All right. It's all about the level of risk you're going to take. If you walk into a major private equity, what's the first thing they're going to want to deal with you with? All right. Okay. We need to build an AI governance program. All right. And global PEs are kind of complex because there's always that fight about using DeepSeek in the corporations. All right. And then if you're a global one, you have to allow it in places like China. Right. Because the way I kind of look at everything is there's good and bad no matter what you do. And AI is just a tool. All right. Just like the oldest argument about firearms. It's, yes, they're dangerous. Yes, they can hurt somebody. Yes, AI can do the same. But guess what? It's all with the person and the intent behind it.
Right.
All right.
Save a life or take a life. I mean, it's a scalpel in the wrong hands or a scalpel in a surgeon's hands that knows what he's doing. Could save a life, take a life. It's Tools and Weapons. Brad Smith wrote that book, right? It was a great book, Tools and Weapons. Yeah.
That's where we're at. I mean, It's like, who's going to use it for good? Who's going to use it for bad? Are people going to use it for bad? Oh, hell yeah. I'm not going to lie. Red teaming has drastically became a lot easier.
Red teaming, explain for people that don't know what that is.
So red teaming is basically taking the adversarial view of things. So you're doing adversarial simulations. You're proving to people that you know what the real security risks are. So you're taking that converge approach using cyber and physical to defeat these places.
Right.
The scary part now, we go to the AI stuff. It's gotten, as much as I hate to say it, I'm not even going to give out the platforms for it. It's become so good and so intricate as far as the details on the face. You can use it to bypass facial recognition. All right, that's where we're at.
Today's technology, right? So again, I mean, we just
To give you an example of where we're at. Remember when we were all on Clubhouses, like what, 2022, 2023?
like
We're
right
all
after
feeding
COVID or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, right after, and we're all there. And Clubhouse did a thing that says, okay, we're gonna partner with Stripe and pay $2 per person for voice recognition. All right. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, that'll be defeated within a year. Sure enough, it was. All right, you had 11 labs come out. Now voice recognition shot. All right, and that's kind of where it goes, where it evolves, things like that. Now where they're at is, if the deep fakes made, how do I build a platform that maps it to what's real or what's not? Because this stuff changes. I don't care where you are politically, they do it both sides.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some's for humor, some's for deception. I prefer the humor, but this is kind of where we're at. You know, bypassing voice recognition. I mean, how many times did they call and ask you to say, okay, this is so-and-so? It's like, dude, this is such old tech. It's like texting those 4 characters you want me to type in. Your phone's already compromised. Your SIM's compromised. When are we going to fix this?
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, well, I need to make sure it's you first. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to give you, wherever your call center is in the middle of not here, more personal identifying information over a phone that's being listened to, because that's going to keep my account safe.
Right. I mean, come on, stop and think about it. How many times will we sit and talk about something and we see an ad for the same thing we talked about in 20 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, and it's now getting to the point where even if you're not on those platforms, like I'm not on any of the social media platforms for almost 8 years now, except for LinkedIn, which whatever. But, you know, I haven't been on Facebook, Instagram, or anything for years. And the reality is that, like, your Prime account, I mean, we were watching a show the other day and literally an ad came on for something that my wife and I were having a conversation about in our living room, that and I know, I'm like, oh my Lord. And we don't have an Alexa. We don't have any of that crap.
Mm-hmm.
But we have an Amazon account and we have iPhones, and somehow, right. You know, the same thing, like you said, everybody's real idea of this is they didn't ask for it, but they get in their car and they have a current gen phone, even if it's like 4 or 5 gens old, meaning like the last 3 to 4 years, if they haven't upgraded it every year, which most people don't.
School, I'm on an iPhone 11.
Yeah, I know. I'm on an iPhone 14, I think. And so what are they at, 18 now or 20 now? And it's like, and you know, and I'll keep that until I cannot keep it. But every time I get in the thing, it tells me how far away I am from my kid's school, this or that. And I have all my privacy stuff turned off. Most people don't turn off anything. And every time there's an update, you got to go back in and recheck it and make sure that they didn't toggle you.
They're going from cell tower to cell tower.
Yeah.
That you can't disable.
Yeah. It's like, hey, this time of day, you like to watch this show, right? Like people have logged into Netflix or into Prime or into something recently, and they've said, hey, this time of day, you typically watch this. Yeah, but okay, that's not creepy, right? Like, did I ask for that?
The funny part, you bring that up, I had to go to an executive's computer, and he wanted to know why they know so much about him. I literally get on there. You know how big his Google cookie was?
Oh, I couldn't even imagine. Probably years.
Yeah, it was years. Without exaggeration, just by deleting that, I saved 9 gigs.
Wow. I don't even know how his computer was still running. It must have been a pretty big machine.
I'm like, that's in Chrome. I'm like, dude, what the hell? I'm like, how many years of data is that? Where can I take that? Where's the AI? See, this is where I always ask the questions. All right. So I always watch Craig Sawyer and all those guys, all the guys that stop all the child predators. Apple does a phenomenal job from their little AI algorithms on their phone. I could see the lifestyle of my nephew from when he was 3 till he's 16. Always matches his face. You know what it can't tell me? If I'm taking my daughter to the park and taking pictures at the park, mind you, I have a higher resolution phone. How come it's not picking up the freaking predators in the background?
Right.
Like if they had a hook in the familywatchdog.us, and since it has all the facial recognition of all the criminals, how come it doesn't pick that up in the phone pictures?
Right.
And send out an alert?
Yeah.
All right. It's scenarios like that is what make me question a lot of things.
Well, and again, this goes back to without.
And it has nothing to do with the new Epstein stuff. Nothing to do.
No,
with
no. I know that. That's why I'm saying this is back to that question of not being. This is not about being a conspiracy theorist. It's about asking questions, right? And we have to get good at asking questions again. We have spent the last several decades indoctrinating everybody to just get the right answer at scale faster than ever before. Everyone's got an opinion. Most of them are willing to share it loudly and proudly without any consequence. And at the end of the day, most of us have gotten worse at asking good questions, even if we were a thinker, simply because algorithmically we're all being manipulated. I'm no different than you. We at least we're aware that we're being manipulated. And even when you're aware of it, it still happens. It's still very hard. And it's all been by design. And as my friend Mickey McManus would say, in big words, it's a malicious denial of service attack against your ability to think, right, at scale. And so that's the universe, that's the environment we live in, whether we want to admit it or not. And the meditation movement, like all these things, what we really have to do is just get back to a place where we ask good questions, and then we stay in the question. And one of the questions asked is, if we can do all this to sell more soap or more lotions or more potions to people, why are we not at the same time just immediately identifying threat actors, whether it be at a park or whether it be in a thing, and nullifying it beforehand? And then when something bad does happen, why does it take us 3 to 4 to 5 days to find the person or the plane or the thing, when none of us who are doing nothing wrong can go through here? And now we're being told that we need more personal privacy overreach. We need more, like, well, wait a minute. The last time I checked, there was a couple people in Congress that bought stock, and then miraculously a couple days later, or a couple months later, it went up, and then they sold stock, and then a couple days later, like United Health, it dropped 10%, and somehow they're just better than Warren Buffett. But we can't, again, just staying in the question and holding ourselves accountable to stay in the question and stop being manipulated, right? That's, I think, one of the takeaways.
Yeah, that's the interesting part, because you know what AI is great at? And this is where it gets risky because nobody talks about it. It's great at controlling the narrative. So if you use it for narrative operations, that's where it gets ugly, because I've seen it happen a few times. All right, I'll go to the less controversial one. All right, where I've seen it used is the good old SIG P320 controversy.
I don't know what that is. I don't think so.
The SIG P320s are firearms. All right.
Okay.
Oh, this is bad. This is bad. This is bad. Well, who could have possibly? So I look at it. First question I ask is, well, who else has something else going on? All right. Maybe they're trying to control the narrative to try and get people to go to this other firearm. Right. So who's getting banned in California? Glock during this whole time. So maybe Glock is doing it. All right. But maybe Glock isn't, because, well, they have their bigger problems. Or is it the firearms groups that are now, or the anti-firearms groups that are doing it to control the narrative? All right, because guess what they're taking advantage of? All the overnight experts. Everybody wants to click. They want to monetize on YouTube. Boom, boom, boom. So let's put this one out. Let's put this one out. All right. Where else do we see that? When Charlie Kirk got shot, we saw everybody's the overnight experts on shooting and everything else. You know what I remember about that day? I was literally at ASIS meeting, and we're talking about active shooter scenarios at schools. I walk out, 40 minutes later, he's shot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And I'm sitting there thinking of all the different rules that they never talked about. All right. What are drone policies on universities? Okay. So because everyone's like, nobody saw it from a drone. How come? Well, a lot of universities have anti-drone policies on the grounds. All right. And then you start going through all the other scenarios. You know what nobody ever talked about, which I saw on my computer and a bunch of other people's? How it controlled the algorithm in social media. Right? You know, and I would screenshot this, send it to everybody. I'm like, are you getting these? Like, yeah, why? I said, because literally, you know how they all do the suggestions on what to look at?
Right.
It was literally angels versus demons.
Yeah.
On all the suggestions, all pretty much from October till December on that whole narrative. I'm like, why is that? What happened? It's kind of odd timing for that. So is it because of what people are posting, this, that, the other thing? But this is where we're going. And then you start to feel like you're in the Matrix. So where's Morpheus to give you your pill?
Yeah. So ending it on a you know, proactive note, couple takeaways. What is something I can do today to empower myself, feel a little bit better about reducing my footprint of attack, maybe taking proactive to, you know, to just solidify things? Like what's a simple step or two or three that I could start to have the conversation with my inner circle of family or whoever it is, and just start to, you know, move in the direction of being less of the problem, more of the solution? What are some takeaways from Tom? Like, what would you tell your red team client after you scare the piss out of them?
Truthfully, what I tell everybody is every time you get a damn terms and services upgrade, copy and paste that whole 45-page document and literally put it in Grok and tell it to analyze it for you as to what the risks are. All right. And then determine whether or not what you should do, what you shouldn't do. And it's funny this came up because I'm getting ready to release this one. So two different things. Remember you and I talked about we should just drop a guide on this, on how to do this. The problem is I don't know how much people are willing to read, because just securing that VM was literally 8 pages.
Yeah, I know.
All right. And then when you have to go in and you deploy everything on that VM, this is what I need to do to get, just say, OpenClaw working properly. All right. Get that done, get that done, get that done. And then maybe have a GitHub repo, since people are lazy. Just take the scripts. Here, go do this. I thought I'd have it done by today. In all reality, after analyzing it and going through it, probably going to take me another 3-4 days. So
yeah,
a freaking lot of work.
Right. Yeah. And I guess, and then the question is, how do you, like, let's go on the other side of that. So let's assume that everybody that listened to this for almost 2 hours goes, well, I trust Tom, I trust Chris, and I trust what they put. So if they put it out, I know they put the work in. Well, we did. We would have. But that doesn't mean we got everything. That doesn't mean we missed. No. So, you know,
it changes. That's the problem.
Yeah, it changes. The benefit of open source is that you have more people looking at it, more people able to contribute to it, and you can get those things, right? So it's the beautiful thing about that, where it becomes a true collaborative effort, where people can build on top of the thing that gets started to make it more secure, more certain, and then you get the network effects working for you in a positive way. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think we should do it. But at the end of the day, though, I think we need to invite everybody to, you know, to take a role if they're going to do that. But how do you know? I mean, if you've never done that before, most people don't even know what GitHub is. That listen to, well, not just this show, any show, right? And I know that because when we do client work with people and help secure stuff, it's like, we're going to set you up with a GitHub. We're going to do this. Don't worry, we're going to manage it for you, but you own it. I want you to understand, you own everything. Day one, mm-hmm. You may not know what to do with it, but at least it's yours. And it's like, I don't know what that is, or how do I do that, or where do I go? And it's like, well, we'll work with that over time. But If we publish that, I mean, this is the thing: is people will do what you said, and then they will hit the wall of, but my phone won't work if I don't accept these terms. So it doesn't really matter what my risks are, right?
No, I mean, and that's the unfortunate part about this game, and this is why attorneys have become my new friends. Now, for instance,
me too. I've never worked with more attorneys on building businesses than I am right now, and from asset protection or whatever, because the laws have to evolve, and the laws that are there have to be, enacted, basically, right? So I'm doing the same thing. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off, but go ahead.
No, I mean, that's kind of the weird reality check of everything. It's like stuff changes, and then you also have to be careful of what you say, because all the patterns of don't say that. Like my one attorney friend, Michelle, her favorite word is it depends. So whenever we're going, she's like, well, it depends. Like, for instance, all right, the threat intel side of the stuff. I've seen all these breaches that happen right before Thanksgiving. None of them have filed a 10K yet. And we're talking like tons and tons of data. One of them, it's their fourth breach from the same approach.
Right. Yeah, they're all going to hit this month or next month, right, when the quarterlies come out.
Yeah, that's actually this week it's happening.
By the 15th. It's like by the 15th or something, isn't it? Something like that.
And I'm sitting there like, this could be interesting times right now. So we'll see. I've just taken the approach, assume breach all the time. Assume breach whenever you're putting stuff in there. That's why I always have my fake email addresses. I don't care. I'll even use the same password for all the fake email addresses because I don't care. It's literally the only reason why I'll use them is I want to see what you've published, and that's it. So if you compromise it, wow, you've read the PDF I wanted to read.
Right.
All right. And that's literally the way I do it. And it's a forwarder, so you never even get my real email.
Yeah, I think those are some simple things that I know I would want to make sure are hardened, right? So I think there's probably a step where it's, you get somebody that knows what they're doing to just do a threat assessment. I think that's just so you can sleep at night, just so you can kind of go, where am I vulnerable and where am I not? And I'm going to take that pill, just like you go in for a doctor's checkup and you go, like, nobody wants to go to a doctor and find out they got cancer, but they also don't want to find out when it's too late to do something about it.
Yep.
And
everything in security is 3 questions, whether it's cyber, physical. Am I vulnerable? Am I exploitable? How do I protect myself? That's it.
Right. And I think this is the area where, because of the complexity, because of the technical overwhelm, and because no one wants to feel stupid, especially rich people, especially high net worth people that have been accomplished, especially their advisors, no one wants to look dumb or be dumb. But the reality is no matter how much you're in this space, you're dumb, because it just moves faster than we can keep up with. And like, there's always something to learn. So we're all dumb at different levels. And at the end of the day, we can be responsible and take a look at those 3 things. Where are we vulnerable? What were they again? Where are we vulnerable?
Where am I vulnerable? Where am I exploitable? How do I protect myself?
Right. And we can
And
answer.
the other way you have to look at it, security isn't about protection. It's about reputational risk management.
Right.
Right? Because if I'm compromised, what does that do to my reputation? Am I still employable? How much have I lost? That's all it really is when you calculate the risk.
Love it.
If a guy comes after you, I mean, you better have. And this is, so we're going to go back to Buffett on this one. When you turn around and you look at some of these high net worth people, who's their security team? Right? I've seen a bunch of SEAL team guys, Delta Force guys, CIA guys running teams. And then you go to Warren Buffett and he has $35 an hour cops. So what is the difference? He just looks at risk a lot different.
Yeah.
All right. The other guys, well, they have a lot more risk. It could be the type of business that they're in.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in a business that pisses off a lot of people. You're probably going to have a whole different security team. All right. You look at Elon Musk. All right. He's got quite an interesting team. All right. Because why? Because he's a realist. That's why he's not, he's optimist on everything going to space. When you turn around and you look at the other part of the news last week where he's going to merge XAI with SpaceX to go IPO,
Right.
like that makes no sense. I'm like, are you that clueless? All right. Because when you turn around and look at it, under X, he's going to build all those nuclear power plants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's going to benefit his AI business. It's also going to benefit Tesla, which is a battery business, not a car business. And everybody forgets to look at it. Starbucks, same thing. Starbucks isn't a coffee shop, it's a bank. You're putting all your money in there for the rewards programs and to make it easier. Well, who started just doing the same thing? Wendy's. All right, so they're adapting to that Starbucks model. All right, because, hey, guess what? We make more money from your money sitting in our account with interest.
Right.
But that's what everybody, do you really know what the business is?
Right. Yeah. I like leaving it where we just did as a pause for this. We covered a ton of ground. I think we want to take home message of where am I vulnerable? Where am I exploitable? What can I do to be better or prevent it? And again, the risk conversation is there. How do I determine risk? How do I define it for myself? And then based on that personal assumption or decision, what do I need to do and what can I avoid worrying about, right? Because then you don't have to overwhelm yourself with stuff that doesn't really add value to your risk profile. You can mitigate it other ways, right? Warren Buffett lives in Omaha, Nebraska. He's been there for his whole life. He's 90 years old. He doesn't care about Instagram. He's not on social media. He doesn't have any of those things because he doesn't want them. So his profile of risk is a high value target is different than someone who's out there pontificating on Twitter, trolling people that are powerful, pissing people off, innovating, publicly traded in technology, drawing a premium for millions of shareholders. There's a different risk profile for everybody, and starting with understanding what yours is and then what you can do about it to live a life of happiness and peace is pretty much the best advice to start, regardless of who you are.
Yep.
Awesome. Tom Ryan, thank you so much for being on the Atomic Level. We're going to have you back. For those, again, who are on Substack, make sure you subscribe to the Asymmetric Mindset, which is Tom's Substack, and thank him for making us all wiser today.
Yep. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome.
Let's stay in touch.